Hello, I'm Glitter and Cosplay, and I want to talk about working up to making your own cosplay from scratch without just full on throwing yourself into it. Unfortunately, when I see a lot of people who talk about making your own cosplay, they never talk about slowly working your way up to it. They literally just talk about, kind of launching yourself into it, and I think that's a horrible way to get into making your own cosplays. It's super intimidating and it's really, really uncomfortable. At least it was for me. Before making your cosplay, there's a couple things you need to understand. You need to understand that you're not going to do it perfectly the first time. So, you shouldn't start with nice fabric the first time. In fact, you should make a mock up fabric. You should make a mock up out of cheap fabric. A good cheap fabric is like 100% cotton, which you can usually get like between 1 and 2 yards of for like $3 to $7. At least you can at where I get my fabric from, which for cheap stuff is from Walmart, for making mock-ups, and then I get my nicer fabrics from Joann's, right? So, in order to start getting comfortable, you're going to take that mock-up fabric and you're going to find different pieces of the cosplay that you need to make, and you're just going to kind of make really simple versions of them, if that makes sense. So, for example, if you need a skirt, you're going to take a skirt for reference, one that fits you. Like this is the skirt I would use, right? You're going to lay it out on the ground and then you're going to measure the skirt, right? You're going to measure how long it is, and you're going to measure the waist area, and you're going to measure all the way around the outside, and you're going to use that and you're going to trace it onto your cheap fabric. And then you're going to teach yourself a lot of different things. You're going to use that skirt as a project, and you're going to make that skirt, maybe we'll call it 5 times. You're going to make that skirt till you can make that skirt perfectly. And since you now can make that skirt perfectly, guess what? You learned a couple things. One of the things you probably learned using the same skirt is how to hem. For example, right here. This is a smooth, you can't see the harsh cut line, right? This is hemming. You learned how to do that by using that skirt. Here, there's 2 fabrics binded together. And also, you can see that the circle was closed off. You're going to learn how to sew 2 fabrics together. You're going to learn how to sew 2 fabrics together. Skirts are a great project to start off with because they're simple, they're easy, they're not at all hard. And you can learn a lot of great stuff from using a skirt. Like I said, how to hem, how to sew. If you want to add a zipper to it, you can teach yourself how to add a zipper. If you want to make it a snap close, if you want to make it a button close, you can teach yourself that with the skirt. And like I said, don't just make that skirt once, make that skirt 5 times, and do something different with that skirt every single time. Maybe use a different stitch on your machine. Maybe use a different thread. And once you've done it the 3rd time, you're like, hey, I really like this thread, and you're going to stick with that thread. For example, I will not use Walmart thread because it breaks and gets giant clots in my machine. Like, I just have this thing, it just stays here like this. I had to cut this out of my machine. It was wrapped around like that in my sewing machine because that's Walmart thread. That's cheap. That stuff breaks really easily. But the thread in my machine right now is rather expensive. It's like $5 a roll, and it doesn't ever break. I've never had that thread break, and I've never had anything I've sewn that thread with break either, which is really nice. But now that you've made that skirt 3 times, you know what you like. You know that, hey, I really like this thread and not this thread. And now that you've also made that skirt a couple times, you know that, hey, I like pinning stuff with like actual pins, or hey, you know that I like using little fabric clips to clip stuff together. Or you know that, hey, I like hemming things a certain way, or hey, I really hate hemming things this way. Also, once you've made the skirt 5 times, you have a concept of how to make straight, consistent lines on your material. Now that you've made that skirt 5 times, you're pretty confident with doing things like, for example, the first time you make the skirt, it's a basic circle skirt. You don't do pleating or anything else. The second time you make the skirt, you try adding a couple pleats. The third time you make the skirt, you try adding ruffles to something. The fourth time you make the skirt, you try adding a zipper. The fifth time you make the skirt, you apply all of those things, and guess what? You got a really cool skirt, right? You broke it down. You taught yourself things using something simple. Now that you've done that project a couple times over, and as I said, you've taught yourself a fair amount of stuff, you're then going to pick a harder part of the cosplay. And also, let me just say this, and because it's understandable. If you're like, oh, I don't think I can make a skirt first, maybe I need to take something smaller on. If the cosplay has bows of some sort or anything like that, those are really, really easy. Those are crazy easy. You don't gotta do anything with those, right? So you can make a bow instead of the skirt, and you can teach yourself stuff with the bow. You know, don't force yourself to do something super, super hard first. Take it slow. It is a-okay to take it slow. It's okay to break it down. But once you've made that skirt, make another thing. Stay with muslin fabric. Don't buy nice fabric yet. You're still getting comfortable, okay? You've made that skirt. You've patterned that skirt. You know your measurements, and you know that you can make that skirt well. Now, you're going to move on to the shirt. Shirts are a little bit harder than skirts. I personally hate shirts because I hate doing sleeves. Like this is just annoying to me. I don't like sleeves. So maybe I sew a sleeveless shirt the first 2 times I sew a shirt, right? Just so I can understand how to do it around the fact that I have boobs because I'm a female, which makes shirts fit really weird if you don't pay attention to your boobs, right? You can teach yourself how to work it if you're a male and you have broader shoulders and like a smaller waist or something, so you need it to fit a little bit differently. Have you ever noticed how like really buff guys are built like Doritos, kind of? If you're a guy like that, that wasn't body shaming at all. I promise. I just bad comparison, okay? I'm not body shaming though. You look fine. You look perfect, okay? But if you know that you have broader shoulders and a smaller waist and you need to work around that, you can use the first 3 times you make that shirt to do that. And then the 4th time you can go, okay, now I'm going to add buttons and I'm going to add sleeves. And the 5th time you've added buttons and sleeves and now you know that the shirt fits you well. Congratulations, you've made a shirt. You have made 2 important pieces of your cosplay. Now, if you have gloves or a jacket or socks or anything else, you're going to make those. You're going to stick with the muslin fabric. Actually, no, don't make socks out of muslin fabric. It's not going to work. They're not going to fit. They have no give. It's not good, okay? Anyways, you're going to make socks out of like muslin fabric, right? So now that you've done that, I'm sorry, you're not going to make socks. You're going to make like your jacket out of muslin fabric still, right? And now that you've done all that, you've gotten pretty comfortable with sewing. So you're going to buy nice fabric, you know, and you're going to take a little piece of that fabric and you're going to run it through your machine. You're going to see how your thread works with it. You're going to, you know, make sure that your thread, both your top thread and your top thread goes in your machine and your bottom thread will go on top of your machine. Now that you've worked with that thread and you're confident and you're comfortable and you know that that thread fits your fabric and you know that thread works well in your fabric, you're just going to go ahead and start sewing everything. You're going to double check your patterns, you're going to make sure that you're comfortable, and by time you've done it all in muslin fabric, you've done it 5-10 times, right? You're comfortable, you've broken it down into very small chunks and pieces, and you've literally taught yourself how to sew, which, by the way, this whole process should take 2 to 3 months. Give yourself time. Watch videos. Learn something. You know, maybe ask somebody or a family member who sews to help you. Don't try to do this all in one night. Take that skirt, make your first skirt, then give yourself 2 days before you throw yourself back into making another skirt. Do not burn yourself out in this process of learning, okay? This is your first cosplay. It's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. I know that my first cosplay wasn't perfect. It was anything but perfect. It was so far from perfect. I almost did no sewing. It was falling off during the convention. I had several wardrobe malfunctions. You know, things like that happen. And it's your first cosplay. It's gonna look great either way simply because you handmade it and you put all this work into it. But you know what? As you continue to handmake them, they're gonna get better. But now that you've made that skirt 5 times, and then you made the finished product and it looks incredible because you know what you're doing, you know, and then you've made that shirt 5 times and you did the finished product and now it looks incredible. You've made your jacket out of muslin, you've made your not gloves, oh my god, you've made your bows out of muslin and now you've translated them into nice fabric, you're thinking to yourself, dang, I did a pretty good job. And maybe at this point you make some things out of like clay or whatever that are, 3D pieces. Maybe you make something like, I'm trying to think. Maybe you need a certain pattern on the shirt in a specific area, and so now you paint that on there, or you use heat transfer vinyl. I would start with paint. I only mention heat transfer vinyl because I will be using heat transfer vinyl in a lot of my projects now that I'm more comfortable with it, but yeah. But you're painting it. Next thing you know, you just handmade your own cosplay. And guess what? It wasn't that intimidating. You know why? Because you didn't jump into it immediately. You took your time and you basically taught yourself how to do it. Right? Congrats! You just made your own cosplay. Or congrats! You're on the way there. Now you have a game plan. Part of the reason I filmed this video and part of the reason that I explained it the way I did with doing things over and over until you get good at them is because I do that. I do that with every single project I make. I make small versions of it. Actually, hold on. I might have the tiny pants I made one time before for my Karaku cosplay. So unfortunately, I don't have my tiny Karaku pants, but you know what I do have? I have my tiny Miku underwear. Okay, let me get the freaking wrinkles out of them. Tiny Miku underwear. So I'm doing a Miku Angel cosplay, and she wears this like bikini kind of outfit. So I was doing that because I'd never sewn panties before, and I wanted to just have an idea of like how to sew them. I also have another tiny piece of this cosplay. Let me grab it. I have these tiny like short things that sit on the outside, right? These were just, these were my tiny mock-ups, okay? I did those to get comfortable before I did the big mock-up pattern, which I'll put a picture of me wearing it over here. I have not finished my Miku cosplay yet, so I don't really want to use it as the best reference, but like for example, when I was doing my Demon Rengoku cosplay, I'll put a picture here. When I was doing my Demon Rengoku cosplay, I took a lot of time to draw this out. Unfortunately, I do not know where I put some of the original drawings, but I know I have them. Anyways, I took the time to draw it out. I put a lot of effort into understanding it before I just threw myself into doing it. I have thrown myself into doing cosplays before. And it came with a lot of error and a lot of being very discouraged because the way people explained it, really, it wasn't just me, it was the way they were explaining it. They explained it that as long as you follow these exact steps, it'll turn out perfectly each time. I recently did a glued hairline on Karaku, right? As you can see all through here, if I move his little bangs, right? It's glued and stuff, right? You can see that? Great. I followed 4 different tutorials, and I still messed it up the first time I did it. I didn't mess it up on Karaku, actually I messed it up well over a year ago when I did it for the first time, and I've done several more after that, and they all look fine. So I promise I'm capable now. But I made my mistakes, and I was very discouraged because I was like, okay, well, why isn't this working? This is what this person did. And then I realized that you're not gonna get it perfect on the first try. And that's kind of how everybody sets up these explanation videos, is that you're gonna get it perfect on the first try, and you're not. And that's okay. And you know what? You shouldn't get it perfect on the first try. I don't know anyone who's gotten anything sewing wise absolutely 110% the first time they ever did it. I completely forgot where I was at with that, so I'm just gonna pick up from where I think I left off. I got a call and I had to answer it, and it shuts off my video whenever I answer calls. Anyways, excuse me, I'm sick. But yeah, don't be so hard on yourself when you make your first cosplay. Break it down into very, very small pieces. Your first, second, and third handmade cosplay is going to be a learning process. By your 4th and 5th, same logic as with the skirt and the shirt and the other small things that you break down and you do it 5 different times, right? By your 4th and 5th cosplay, they're gonna look better. They're gonna look good. You just have to give yourself time to learn. You have to give yourself time to get to the point where they look better and where they look good. I did, and trust me, it was worth it. I did it with my wigs, I did it with my makeup. Learning is a process. Getting good at cosplay is a process. Don't be hard on yourself. Give yourself credit where credit's due. You handmade a cosplay. That's cool. That's something 90% of cosplayers don't do. And one day, if you want to enter competitions, congratulations. You did that. You have made several cosplays. You've gotten good at it. You've pushed yourself every time to do something a little bit harder because you know that you can do it. And it may not be perfect, but you know you can do it, right? Once you've done that, you can do really cool things like maybe one day in the far future, maybe you want to become a seamstress and you can make cosplays for other people. Maybe one day you want to take that knowledge and you want to throw it in a garbage can because you don't care anymore. That's fine too. It's not a waste of time. Teaching yourself how to sew is a wonderful thing. Hey, even if you don't use it for cosplay long term, or even if you decide that, you know what, sewing my own cosplays is too much work, I don't enjoy it. Because you know what, sewing your cosplays is like a subsection of cosplay as a hobby. It's like its own hobby subsection, right? Like sewing, it's its own thing, right? So you have that knowledge now, you know? You need to fix a button on your shirt? Cool, you can do that. You know, you want to make something? Cool, you can do that. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter how long it takes you to get good. And it doesn't matter what your standard of good is compared to other people's standard. Go off your standard, be confident, give yourself credit where credit's due, and don't stop working on it. Don't let a simple mistake get you down. Just keep working. Keep pushing yourself to do good, and you will do good. I'm going to conclude the video there. I really hope you were able to take anything from this. I hope, you know, the suggestion of doing it in muslin more than once or twice, even if it seems like common sense, I hope you took something from that, you know. I hope that you, first of all, do great if you do make your own cosplays. I hope that you have fun. I hope you took something from this video. I hope you learned something, and I hope you have a wonderful time at your next convention.